People have been asking me, Woody, what mocap suit should I buy? Should I get a Rokoko? Should I get a Vive tracker? Should I get a blah, 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 blah. Yeah, maybe you should. And maybe I know which one. So we're gonna get into it, all of it. Every mocap question, it's like, it's all going down today, baby. All right, so first off, let's talk about our target audience, right? So you can pay anything for mocap, right? Like you can buy a dollar store mocap, you can spend $1,000 on mocap, you can spend $50,000 on mocap or more. So here's the thing. This list is for people who are like sort of getting into it. Like this list is for people who are interested in joining this weird world of virtual production and VTubers and all of that stuff, right? So, and we're gonna talk about the pros and cons of using certain specific methods for specific projects. So just to get started, like I'm gonna break down like as many mocap systems as I'm familiar with, which is a lot. I'm not gonna be touching higher end optical based tracking mocap. You should follow Citizen Meta 1 if you wanna see what that's all about. He late last year I think, put together a crazy Vicon rig and did all sorts of crazy like full body motion capture that was all incredibly tastefully done and super good. So we're gonna be not talking about that stuff. We're gonna be talking about stuff you can buy right now that will increase your ability to motion capture. So my first question is, what are you doing and why do you need a mocap suit? I'm not questioning whether you do need a mocap suit. Some people maybe do, some people maybe don't. There's some people who get a little bit too into this. For me, it was kind of a gateway drug. Fofame has a great video where she talks about mocap and like she gets into who should get a mocap suit and who doesn't need one. For VTubers, I don't think everyone needs a mocap suit, but for developers, they're super helpful. And for anyone working in animation, I would recommend, you know, at least having something of your own to speed up the process, if you will. So there's like a couple of different ideal mocap suit users, right? There's people doing game animation stuff, like triggerable animations for a game, like battle animations and stuff like that. Although there's a lot of marketplace content for that out there already. That's a thing if you want to do that. There are people who are making full-on animations. There are people who want to do VTubing, which is like what I'm doing right now, which is like being live. We're going to talk a lot about full body motion capture, but we're also going to talk about sort of this like improvised mid-body motion capture. Right now I'm using Live Link Face and I'm using my Leapmotion hand tracker and I'm actually not wearing any mocap equipment. After COVID in 2022, the chips are down, literally. Literal chips, literal microprocessors. It's hard to get them right now. So the countries that make those have had lockdowns and things, shortened production. There's a backlog of orders to be made. People are trying to get chips and everybody is trying to get them and everyone's having trouble. There's a lot of mocap companies who need electronics components right now and it can be really hard to get those electronics components. So keep that in mind. Some of the companies we're gonna talk about have been hit harder than others. There are some safer bets than others. In 2022, unfortunately, that's a thing. So we want to talk about a robust motion capture solution. So we want to be able to live stream to a game engine like Unreal or Unity. We want something that can also record stuff. Though if you've been following my work closely, you'll know that we can use anything as motion capture in Unreal through Take Recorder, as long as we're not, you know, running the tape out on Take Recorder all day. And then let's also talk about ease of use, right? To me, the best mocap system is the mocap system that you are able to use quickly, because trust me, like if you're someone like me who has trouble eventually like sort of getting to what they need to do, like the mocap suit actually can sometimes encumber you and make it harder for you to go stream if you're using it as a VTuber, which is like something nobody talks about. So our ideal mocap system can live stream, can record, is easy to use, and also is attainable, like we can actually buy it. So I want to talk about suits versus sensors, which is, they all have sensors. Everything is sensors, right? But I'm talking about suits versus optical. General notes on suits. Most people are selling suits limited to a specific body size. A lot of times you could change the sensors out on those suits. Specific suits are fitted for certain bodies, and that's like sort of a pain if you're trying to use multiple mocap actors and you're trying to use the same suit. That's a problem. Battery life is a huge factor with a lot of this stuff. That goes for more than just suits on this list. Obviously, upper end mocap solutions like the Vicon and stuff, you don't have to worry about that. Everything's plugged in, or it's not even electronic. Lastly, I want to talk about inertial motion capture, and that's an important word if you don't know it already. Inertial motion capture means that the suit is not running off of world data. The suit is doing relative math between itself and like the different points on the body to be able to figure out where it is in 3D space. So like most of the suits are inertial. Sometimes they have accelerometers, sometimes they have magnetometers. Magnetometers are important, and we'll definitely talk about that. Magnetometers are tricky because they're based on proximity towards metals, based on the sensor's proximity to the other sensors. Suits in general are not as accurate as an optical mocap solution. They can be set up to be more convenient, and they're more portable. That's huge. They are way more portable than a optical solution. Which is something to really think about. So I want to start with Rokoko because I feel like they are the cool kid at the party. I like Rokoko. I think they're a really cool company. There's like reasons for me to not think that, which I want to talk about too, because I really want to be honest about my experience with these. I should say nobody's sponsoring this video. This is just me and my opinions. I have not received any money from anyone to do any kind of mocap. So Rokoko is how I got started with VTubing in a way. It was the first time I could take data into the computer and look at what was happening with the mocap in real time. Technically, my first ever mocap shoot was done with the Microsoft Kinect, but that thing sucks and you should just use it for video games that you got in 2012. So Rokoko has really great advertising. Like Rokoko is really shiny and their stuff is awesome. Like you look at their website, it's all very, very wonderful and cool. So I think for a lot of people, there's like a lot of shine with them, and I think that's fine. Like that's really good. Like they're making a product, they do a really good job of promoting it. My favorite thing about Rokoko overall is that they are such a positive and productive member of the CG community. Like they're always doing different competitions and ways for you to get involved, and they give away mocap suits, and sometimes they just give away money. I got my Rokoko suit in 2020, which I feel like was before a lot of people, although technically I think they've been around since 2017. Their whole company started with a Kickstarter. So like initially everything was great. I got Rokoko before I even knew there were VTubers. I had like sort of thought about the idea of being a virtual version of myself. Like I had thought about it, but I didn't know that they existed yet. And for the most part, Rokoko stuff worked for me early on. So like early on in the product life, I had a node go bad on my head and they had to send me a new cable to connect that node. That actually happened twice. I think there was at least 4 times that I had node points on the sensors break and lock the joint digitally. So like when I was moving around, I was unable to like translate entire joints sometimes, which is not great. However, customer service was able to help me, usually getting me a couple new cables. Now, currently I'm at a spot where I have like a specific joint point that doesn't seem to be accepting cables as a solution to be able to like help solve the problem, which I'm a little bit frustrated with. At this point, my suit's out of warranty, and I will say that as nice as everyone at customer service is, they are in Europe. Customer service is primarily active while I, an East Coast American, am asleep. At no point did I feel like they like abandoned me or anything like that, but at some point I got really sick of the back and forth with this, and currently I don't really use the Rokoko suit very much. There are things I want to use it for, like I want to use it more towards animation. Remember we talked about different kinds of applications? People who use it to create their own game animations, I think that's perfect. I think that's amazing. Like that's such a great application for the suit. The other thing I love about Rokoko is they've had like a really honest approach with how they're promoting things. Like if they find out that their suit is like a bad fit for a specific workflow, like they don't tend to like hide that. You may have seen the video Corridor Digital did where they made Avatar 2 and it turned out really janky, and like they used Rokoko suits and it wasn't like the world's best outcome. If you're using multiple Rokoko suits, like I would see if you can find some case studies and some people you could talk to about like how that went well. I feel like I just said a lot of cons. There are some great pros for Rokoko. I think their price is right. I think their price is good. I told somebody a couple years ago, I think the Rokoko suit is the 5D Mark II of mocap suits. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know that this is a really important discovery, invention, machine that's going to make a lot of things possible for a lot of people in the same way that that camera made a lot of things possible, the Canon 5D Mark II. So the Rokoko suit will kind of work out of the box. It can run on its own Wi-Fi network. The only downside to that is that you need to run your computer on that Wi-Fi network. So if you're trying to troubleshoot your Rokoko, you should have like another computer nearby that you can Google stuff on. It's great that it has built-in Wi-Fi. That's incredible. The only other big con with Rokoko is that they have subscription software costs. It's not bad. It's it's like pretty decent, and they've recently changed their pricing models, I think a little bit for the better. But for me, once I buy something like a Rokoko suit, like I kind of just want it to work and I don't want to have to pay for any features. That being said, you can use it for free, but what it won't do for free is streaming your live mocap data to Unreal or Unity. That's a feature that you pay for per month or per year. I want to talk about notable people who use this. I'm going to talk about VTubers, a couple other people too. I really like Charlie from Prismatica as a dev. I secretly have a man crush on this dude. I think he's a genius, and he's got a suit, so I've seen some content from him. He's someone who uses it to make animations for his game. I don't know how much he's using it recently. I've seen that dude does a lot of cool stuff. Some great VTuber examples is Fofamit. She uses a Rokoko suit. Kana Fuyuko is amazing. She's so great. Pixelfire, great example. Next, I want to talk about the big guy. I want to talk about Xsens. We're just gonna go out of order here. So Xsens is obviously like the premium model. I made a joke during a game once that it was probably the best mocap suit that you could buy. You've seen YouTubers use these suits. I do not know how people afford this other than like working directly with the company. You've seen stuff from Corridor Digital. Code Miko obviously is a great VTuber example, and Jonathan Winbush is someone else who also makes really high top tier content who I believe has just recently started getting into using Xsens equipment. Xsens has a couple of different suits. They have a couple of different pricing plans. Their software as a service model is astronomical, and I heard a quote that was like $250 a month to run their stuff, and that's a lot of money. I ultimately don't have one, and I don't know that many people who do have them. I thought about interviewing someone for this, but I'm gonna point you to a video if you're really curious about the Xsens suit. There's a really great Rokoko Xsens comparison done by VizGuru, so I'll have that link in description. I've heard people talk about this stuff before. Ultimately, you know, you get what you pay for, and the Xsens suit is by an order of magnitude more expensive than Rokoko, and I think a lot of people should think about that, especially VTubers. You should really think about that. And if we're talking about suits, we can't forget gloves. I don't have as much experience with this, and I mostly want to talk from experience. I do own a pair of Rokoko gloves, and they're great. The gloves work pretty well. I have one sensor in my gloves kit that is like a little bit out of socket and just kind of got stitched in wrong, and customer service kind of left me hanging on that one. Like, I was within warranty for the product, and they were kind of like, oh, well, can you just tie it on with some string or something? I can't remember what they actually said. It wasn't string, but you get me. So notable people who use Rokoko gloves are the people I've mentioned before who use Rokoko suits, but also Riku VR. Riku, like me, mixes and matches a lot of their mocap equipment. Manus, also a big one. You see Manus more from people who have Xsens suits, because to my knowledge, Manus is the company that handles all of Rokoko's gloves. So they integrate specifically together. So like you have Manus gloves and you have an Xsens suit. They work together. I'm not sure if at one point Xsens bought Manus or what happened exactly, but they're also great. I've heard people mention that Manus is sort of like powered by like a strip sensor that can like be recoiled based on like the curls of the fingers, and Rokoko's are more based on accelerometers. Hands are tricky, right? So like whatever you're gonna do, if it's gonna be animation, like you're gonna have to clean it up. You're gonna have to find a way to clean it up somehow. And if you're doing VTubing, it might not matter that much. My least favorite thing with Xsens and Manus is how opaque their pricing models are. I think there are other gloves out there too. There's at least one brand I know I'm forgetting. Ultimately, I've done plenty of streams where I have like these nasty like stuck doll hands that just move. At least for VTubers, like get a hand tracking solution of some sort, which actually brings us to the Leapmotion. So I'm talking about the Leaps sort of in contrast to the gloves. This is what I'm using for my character right now, and they are all right. So what's great about the Leap is when you're in happy range with Leap, it's super accurate. So like what I'm doing right now, Leap loves that. Look at these thumbs. These thumbs are great. I'm actually touching my fingers. There's inaccuracy here, and it's my fault for modeling my fingers badly. But like you can see me like moving my thumbs all around my hands. Now, what happens when I want to give a thumbs up? It looks bad, right? Because the camera is like right down here below me, and it can't see the thumbs up. While all the models are reasonably priced, the model that I have currently is the old school Ultra Leap motion controller back when they were Leapmotion, because I think they renamed to Ultra Leap. It has 120 field of view, if I recall, versus like, you know, there's newer ones they've made that are better that have like a 240 or something like that. This is a safe bet and it's really cheap. So check out their other models. I assume they all work with the SDK. I just don't know anyone who has those. I know a lot of people, however, who have this one, who have the Leapmotion controller. So there are so many VTubers who have this thing. I feel like it's silly to make a list, but I'll name a couple. So like Cabal, Pumpkin Potion, Horatius, Steez Hornsby. These are all VTubers who are regularly doing 3D stuff with their hands. The only thing that bothers me about my mocap system right now is that like my hands are more realistic than like the rest of my body. You can see my body sort of like rotating left and right, up and down, bobbing, 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 and then here's these beautifully articulate hands. This is what I'm using right now. I'm currently refactoring my motion capture system, which is an optical one. Let's talk about optical. There's a large gap between VR and high-end systems. So like a Vicon rig is gonna set you back tens of thousands of dollars. However, what won't do that is a Steam VR kit of some kind. The other reason that I don't wear a Rokoko suit or an Xsens suit or a perception suit is because of temperature. So I'm a VTuber, right? Like I do animation and game stuff, but for this, I don't wanna have a high barrier to stream. Like I said, I want things to be easy. I wanna just roll up to my stream and jump in. I don't wanna suit up and deal with all that stuff. And also not sweat through my clothes while I do this. So let me talk about Steam VR, because that's pretty much the only game in town when it comes to optical motion tracking outside of this. I have a Valve Index and I have about 7 Vive 3.0 trackers. I own multiple base stations. I have them in multiple rooms in my house. You could theoretically use any VR setup to be able to do this. Anything that works with Unreal, you can technically get data out of. Watch the video I made about how to use the Quest 2 for VTubing. Should you use the Quest 2 for VTubing? No, I don't think you should do that. You should definitely not buy a Quest for VTubing. And while the Quest does have the ability to interpret hands by looking through optical cameras, it's an experimental feature, and I'm not sure how to access that API. These Steam VR systems are optical. They're using base stations on different sides of the room that can tell up to the millimeter where things are. Actually, I think it's a little less than a millimeter, and that's kind of part of what's awesome about it. Let's talk about the results. These are honestly great. The raw motion capture out of this is weird, but it's accurate. Like, it can actually be shaky. Like, if you wear the wrong accessory to attach the VR mocap to your body, it's gonna like actually shake the controller. You can use it with any body size. Like, it doesn't matter. And that's something I've talked about before when we were going through our rigging series of talking about how we want the bones to match the human that's gonna drive them. It's a big deal. That's great. The other thing is that these are easy to get. The Vive is a consumer product. Your Valve Index, despite being a indie virtual production powerhouse, is designed for home use. You can use it as a VR console. This is something Fofamit talks about in her Should You Get Full Body Mocap video. You can also use the Vive system for virtual production, which is awesome. Like, we've all seen videos of someone who's stuck a little Vive tracker on their camera. This video is about full body capture though. We're focusing on capturing the body. If you're gonna get any kit, get an up-to-date one. Get a Valve Index with the Index controllers that you can use for fingers. However, the biggest problem when it comes to these is that they don't have built-in software. Now, if you're like me and you spend an inordinate amount of time in Unreal Engine and Steam VR is up all the time and everyone on Discord thinks you're just always playing VR all the time, but like, what software should you use? One great example is Kyle Natali of Mega Steak Man's VR mocap system. It's got a Discord. This dude stays on top of it all the time. He's always publishing changes. The other cons is that the battery life is kind of a concern. The batteries are gonna happen on a per node basis. I actually bought a shoe rack and then specifically built it out in such a way that I could put all my Vives in there, and I custom 3D printed a whole bunch of cable holders so the cables wouldn't fall out of the back. I use an Anchor charger that has IQ intelligent charging, and it can actually really charge all of the trackers really fast, which is great. Like, I can usually get them back to full power within like an hour or two, which is amazing. Don't quote me on it, your results may vary. The only thing with the Vive trackers is they can be uncomfortable depending on where you put them on your body. In my first version of my mocap software that I wrote, I had it set up specifically to track me from behind, so when I sat down, then I couldn't really like lean up against my back because there'd be a Vive tracker sticking right into my tramp stamp. Make sure that if you're getting trackers, you get the Vive 3.0 trackers. A big thing to know here is that there is an older generation of SteamVR HMDs and an older generation of Vive trackers. Now, some people were using these a lot in early indie virtual production. Do not get them now. They are not great. They work only on 2 different base stations, which means you can't triangulate to more stations and you can't have more visible at the same time, which is a problem. If I recall, the battery life is worse on these. Don't get that system. Currently, my recommendation for people who want to do full body mocap, who are VTubers, is I recommend them get a Valve Index. Same as Fofamit. It's the best way to go here. If you can get it hooked up and you can have a pipeline or a tool chain that will let you get that into a game engine, it's going to look amazing. The Vive 3.0s are great, but there are a few areas in which they could be improved. Battery life can be a trick with these things. I think the max I've caught on them is like 5.5 hours, 6 hours before they go. Ultimately, you can buy battery extenders that you can wear. Rebuff Reality makes a strap set that has a built-in extra battery pack. However, it does seem like someone has improved on the Vive tracker design. The Tundra Trackers from Tundra Labs, everybody's crazy about these right now. Now, I haven't owned one and I can't personally attest to anything because chip shortages. Got bad problems with chip shortages. They work in SteamVR, same as everything else. They are, as far as I know, smaller, longer lasting, and easier to deal with than the Vive 3.0 trackers, and everyone I know who's gotten one loves them. It's also worth noting that if you're going to use Vive trackers, you're going to need USB ports. Think of them as USB devices. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but you're going to need a COM port on your computer taken up by a USB device. Tundra makes multi-USB dongles that you can buy. These are also now sold out. There are a few other things I haven't talked about in this video that are worth mentioning. Slime VR is, I want to say similar to Tundra, but from everything I've seen, there's no reason to expect that they would be better than just Vive trackers. They are a low-cost option that I believe was being crowdfunded. Let's talk about the Face. The Face is pretty much an iPhone world right now. Everyone is mostly using iPhones. People are using iPhones, or they are in a studio using professional gear and markers and special cameras and things you and I can't afford. The iPhone comes with Apple's AR kit, which is a surprisingly amazing facial tracker. If they had done any less effort to this, it probably would have been a cute gimmick, but it wouldn't have been amazing. I'm using AR kit right now. The only issue with these are the helmets. I have the Radical Variants Facecam iPhone HMC. This thing is awesome. Before this, people were using goofier things that were harder to maintain and stuff like that. I think this thing is awesome. It's super lightweight and super solid. I have touched relatively few pieces of manufactured equipment that can manage to make that balance. I've heard of others that people like Face Good, stuff like that. These are all worth checking out. I personally just own this one, and most of the time when I'm VTubing, I just have my iPod sitting in a tripod mount on top of a GorillaPod, and I don't need that thing attached to my face right now because we're just doing a little thing at my desk. There's also the possibility of more coming from iPhone. Well, however, we're on the other side of WWDC at this point, and it's not looking like anything huge is about to drop just yet. It is looking more and more like the future of at least sitting at the desk VTubers could be done entirely with an iPhone, and I, for one, welcome our cellular overlords. There's a bunch of other mocap stuff, and it seems like a new startup is happening every day for those who are brave enough to venture past the problems with the electronics market at the moment. This is just what's happening right now. There could be something next week that completely changes my entire opinion of things. We're gonna have more content on this channel about how to do mocap directly in Unreal using Control Rig and any API that we can stick into it. Ultimately, I wrote the motion solver controller for these Leapmotion hands, and I did it just because I know how to use Unreal. If you're interested in learning how to develop experiences for streaming and for filmmaking and for other sort of unorthodox uses of game engines, you should check out this channel. You can also check out our Discord server where I am collecting weirdos. We're making cool stuff that nobody's ever seen before, and I set out to do that, and I can safely say I have done exactly that. There are some really cool people hanging out there, and if you want to talk, we are always talking mocap. We are talking mocap all the time. Also, you know the deal. This is YouTube. So if you want to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. But also, if you can like, comment, throw notifications on, all that stuff helps me reach more other people who are trying to use creativity to do new things we haven't seen before. Because I think we can all admit that there's enough boring, repeatable junk out there. And what's cool about all this technology and how accessible it all is that it helps us make cool things that are surprising and new and wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day.